Hello, BookTube. This is a bookshelf tour, bookcase number 11. Shelf, I guess we would call it 2. This is a little odd-shaped bookshelf, so it's hard to designate everything exactly, but we'll do the best we can. I'm going to start off here with the Book of the Continental Soldier, a stack full of books. No dust jacket. Really odd color brown for the page ends and the end papers. It's a Stackpole Company, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and this was published in 1968, and it is by Harold L. Peterson. It does have technical contributions by Detmar H. Fink and Marcos Ladich, with special illustrations by H. Charles McBaron Jr., Claude A. Risley, and Peter Copeland. So you can tell it's going to be a heavily illustrated and sort of fascinating work on the Continental Soldier. If you're into that sort of thing, which I enjoy. Next, we have here Massachusetts, Mapping the Bay State Through History, Rare and Unusual Maps from the Library of Congress by Vincent Verga and Daniela Spinella. Lovely thing. This is GPP, Guilford, Connecticut, and it's 2011. This is Morris Book Publishing Limited Liability Company. It's a mouthful. And it's just what it says it is, historic maps of the Bay State. Then we'll move right along to Minutemen and Mariners, True Tales of New England by Charles F. Haywood. There's Mr. Haywood. And this was Dodd Mead and Company, New York, and it came out in 1963. It has a section of illustrations in the center. Treason at Michilimackinac, Proceedings of a General Court-Martial held at Montreal in October 1768 for the trial of Major Robert Rogers, edited by David A. Armour, Mackinac State Historic Parks. So, a little publication by them about Rogers. It's actually nice, very well done. Then moving along here, The Honor of Command, General Burgoyne's Saratoga Campaign, June to October 1777 by Stuart Murray. And this was Images from the Past, Bennington, Vermont. Copyright 1998. Here's this. Then here we have A Visitor's Guide to Colonial and Revolutionary New England. Interesting sites to visit, lodging, dining, things to do. Patricia and Robert Folk. There's a couple other volumes in this series that I did not get. I got the ones near my home. So this is a Countryman Press, Woodstock, Vermont, and this is from 2006. So if you're going to Rhode Island, that's where you'd start, and then it would give you some travel tips. Next, the Bulletin of the Fort Ticonderoga Museum, Volume 15, 1992, number 4. Has a French engineer on the cover. So this one happens to be talking about mismanagement of the 1758 expedition against Carillon by John Cardwell. Colonel Charles Clinton's journal of his campaigns in New York, July to October 1758 during the French War, edited by Robert F. Mulligan. So this is a scholarly little volume put out by the Fort Ticonderoga folks. Then we have here Founding Brothers, The Revolutionary Generation by Joseph J. Ellis. It's a very well-known history book. So it's Alfred Knopf, New York, 2004. And there's Mr. Ellis. And then this one here is Fuselis, the Saga of British Redcoat Regiment and the American Revolution by Mark Urban. Excuse me. Very good book. Enjoyed this very much. Walker and Company, New York. And it's 2007. Then this is what, I'll save this for last. Let's move on this way. So here we have 1775, A Good Year for Revolution by Kevin Phillips. This is Viking, and this came out in 2012. And we get here a very famous book, a very famous author. This is David McCullough's 1776. There's the man. And papers. Simon & Schuster, New York, in 2005. A standard study of the Revolution. Popularization. This is a table of contents and index to Burgoyne's expedition, compiled and edited by Edward A. Hoyt for the Vermont Historical Society, Montpelier, Vermont Historical Society, 1998. So, that's what it says. It's a bibliography if you're studying that subject. And then here's The Battle of Hubbardton, The Americans' Rebels Stem the Tide by John Williams. This is published by the Vermont Division for Historic Preservation. And it was 1988, but this is a 2002 reprint. And then finally, here's a wonderful book. The Metaphysical Club, A Story of Ideas in America by Louis Menand. And this was Farrar, Straus and Giroux, New York. And it came out in 2001. The Civil War made America a modern nation, unleashing forces of industrialism and expansion that had been kept in check for decades by the quarrel over slavery. But the war also discredited the ideas and belief of the era that preceded it. The Civil War swept away the slave civilization of the South, but almost the whole intellectual culture of the North went with it. It took nearly half a century for Americans to develop a set of ideas, a way of thinking, that would help them cope with the conditions of modern life. The struggle is the subject of this book. Fascinating, fascinating history of ideas, and one I recommend quite strongly. The Metaphysical Club, Louis Menand. So that was the second shelf of the 11th bookcase. Thank you, BookTube.